I remember 3 months before Michael got sick, we were all together driving home, and he goes, "We have an almost perfect life." And I thought to him, wow, we really do. And 3 months later, that perfect life was completely turned upside down. And Michael got lumps on his clavicle, and we ended up in the oncology clinic.
I don't usually cry in front of my family, but the tears were just coming down as I'm driving to the hospital to see my son.
I literally fainted, thinking, not our son, not cancer. And I remember he shared a room with a baby that was actually born with cancer. And he goes, I need to make a difference. I need to do something about this. So he really decided from the beginning of his diagnosis that he was going to turn things around and do his part.
And he's the one who started his own foundation and nurtured it for the first 5 years before we lost him 8 days after his 16th birthday.
I started training as an oncologist 35 years ago and started taking care of children about that time. We did have cures for children, and the therapies were toxic, but we lost a lot of children.
We've gone through waves of discovery. So in the 50s, we have chemotherapy, and then a decade later, we have radiation therapy, and then a decade after that, we have bone marrow transplantation. And all of these innovations, discoveries, improve child's lives.
When a diagnosis happens, the upfront meetings with families are challenging, but there's always hope. When a relapse happens, you still try to give the family some hope, but at the same time, you have to be realistic, and the families know what that relapse means.
About 1 out of 5 children have their cancer come back, or they actually have a really bad side effect from the therapies and can even die from those side effects. Their hope goes from really having potentially a really normal life to one of continued therapies over many years and many times long-term life complications.
There was a young girl, a little girl I'd looked after since she was about 6, and I'd really watched her grow up into a super smart, funny, witty, sassy 12-year-old. And it was just heartbreaking for me to have to sit down with this girl. And in my heart of hearts, I knew that she had disease that we wouldn't be able to cure. She's 12. How does she process that? How does she move forward in her life with that knowledge?
The hardest conversations I find are the ones you have with the older teenager. You know, you're talking death with a 17-year-old who should have, another 60, 70 years of living ahead of them.
When we were going through this 25 years ago, the conversations were much more difficult. The Michael Cuccioni Childhood Cancer Research Program at BC Children's Hospital is really wanting to change the conversation with the doctors.
We want every child treated for cancer to have a healthy life and go on and be able to do things such as graduate from high school, get a job, get married.
And that's what really drives me as a scientist to say is, how do we change the ending of that story?
Every time a child loses their battle with cancer, I recommit myself to the research because I know that's where many of the answers are.
I think there's some incredible new therapies that we are so thankful to actually be able to offer to kids here in BC. Our cellular therapies program, our CAR T cells, these are therapies that are here now, and they're actually changing the story.
All of those things would not be at BC Children's Hospital in the absence of donor money.
With the knowledge and with the research, if our son was here today, we would probably very, very likely have him still with us. And that's how far the advancements have come.
So the tax dollars pays for the present. The patients on the ward who are receiving cancer care, that's covered. What isn't covered is the future ideas. How do you cure that 20%? That's really what donor dollars pays for, is the research world, the future, how to make cancer care better.
So with the advancements, these families are hearing a different conversation that is actually changing the face of childhood cancer through research here at BC Children's Hospital.
It's been exciting to see children that I know that I would have lost or would not have survived when I first started out in my training and treating children to now. I'm excited about that, but I'm also really committed for the rest of the children that we still don't have something for. The research we do in childhood cancer is transformative and groundbreaking, and the only way that it can happen is through donor support.